Alright, so let's get this done. I just spent a few extra hours staying up tonight writing this damn script out that's ended up way too long. About what I guess has become an important topic, though I still stand it isn't. The reason it's become important is because so many people are talking about it, and not actually the reality of the situation. So basically, if you're out of the loop, there's a Reddit thread up at the moment with a bunch of misinformed players out for my blood, like hardcore, like I've never had in the past 10 years on the website. People have been calling me a homophobe, which is wrong. People have been calling me a match manipulator, which was wrong. People have said I was banned from the partner program, which is wrong. People have said that I raged in PvP, which is wrong. I mean, sometimes I have, we'll get to that soon, but not in this instance. And people have blathered on about 100 other decontextualized, like, hard truths at my expense beyond that. It's completely ridiculous to the point where it's funny. So let's get into this. Now, a few disclaimers at the start. I do not really consider this an apology video. I mean, I have some very particular, precise apologies, and I've got some stuff that I want to talk about with myself, but I'm really not sorry about anything that's happened, and I don't regret anything that I've done, though obviously hindsight is 2020 and we can all come to rethink how we act on stuff. Most of you, who, you know, may have already thrown a little dislike on the video, should come out of this thinking that I've been a bit of an idiot, and you will think I'm an idiot. I think I've been an idiot, but nothing more. You may even wag your finger like a concerned parent and talk about how I should have known better, and that's fair, but believe me, it's something I already know. So, some of you, predictably as well, will take that statement as a challenge, and you'll do everything you can to stick to your original opinion. And it's okay, I'm on the internet, I understand that too. So, I'm making this video mostly for the casual acquaintances of mine who I'm really scared about right now, misunderstanding this situation. I'm really scared that there's a lot of people out there who I really quite like, and I think have really quite liked me, but now, you know, might have second guesses, or they might have lost respect for me or something for the wrong reasons. So, you know, I'm talking about various developers, both ex-developers and current developers at the studio, old friends on YouTube, guildies, anyone who might have read something this weekend and thought it was real. So if you're one of those people, please listen, because you're who I made this for. Also, one final disclaimer, I want to say at the heads, a great big congratulations, really, and a well done to the hackers, particularly, and also anyone who doesn't like me, you know, out there in the community who facilitated this whole thing, because really, well done, you beat me fair and square. For a long time, I wasn't going to make a video at all on this, because I firmly believe there is no drama. And why would I give you the satisfaction? Your aim is like just to talk shit and fuck with the community and try and mess things up for me and stir things up, get juicy internet drama. So naturally, I don't want to cave to that. I don't want to give anyone any power. I don't want a signal boost. I really don't. And I delayed on this video for a long time for that. But I was wrong. I can't stop this. And you beat me, really. You had a good idea and you played it out. I'm being very sincere. You've played this community and me like a fiddle. And I should have known that you'd be able to. This thing's become big enough now that what's gone from an audience of 2 people to an audience of 60 Reddit commenters to then an audience of like 1,000 Reddit commenters to finally now my active audience of 10,000 plus, or whatever this video will get in the end. So enough blathering. Here's the story of all the details. It's long, it's going to seem meandering, but there are a lot of building blocks to establish. It's all important. The cynically minded of you will think that I'm just long-winded because I'm trying to wriggle to safety, but the truth is that context matters. So, first, you should know that I've played a ton of PvP in Guild Wars. For a long time, I believed that the scene had real potential. You don't have to look very far online to see me talking about that fact. I actually think the combat and the buildcraft in the 5v5 PvP format is where Guild Wars 2 is at its richest. I think PvE and World vs. World don't compare at all. I mean, maybe World vs. World in a competitive scenario does, but there's a lot of gates to get there. Most people don't know me at all. They stereotype me as a PvE guy because I also know a ton of other stuff about this game, including the lore, and people enjoy the lore videos more than any. Maybe I'm a dab hand at that format, but not other ones. So, PvE is what people stereotype me as, but it isn't really what I think of as the best part of the game from an experience standpoint. It's PvP. and I care a lot about, or cared a lot about PvP. I actually have the 10,000 wins champion brawler title, which doesn't necessarily mean I know what I'm talking about, but it does mean I've played a ton. That's actually thousands of hours of PvP and spending time in the PvP lobby amongst PvP players. There are not actually many people, I'm talking like less than 100, who have played more than me. So I'm very much a part of that community, and you know what? Over those thousands of hours, I've been a completely relaxed and mostly silent person. I've never been infracted, I've never been banned, I've never had any verbal abuse issues, I never had it in Guild Wars 1 over 10 years ago, and I've never had it over the past 8 years in Guild Wars 2. Compared to the average PvP player, who chats shit on a daily or even game-by-game basis, and compared to the typical established good player, who has multiple bans in their history, I'm not even on the radar of what you might consider toxic, and I would like to think... Why do I always assume this? That people would have acknowledged or considered that fact by now. That said, we are talking about thousands of hours here, and it is true that if you want to, and I guess Reddit did want to, you can memorize and cherry pick situations over like a full 8 years of playing Guild Wars 2, where I have talked shit. I'm not really ashamed of that. I'm a human being, things do slip through the cracks sometimes, but I think it says a lot that in, you know, basically a full-blown witch hunt, which has been interesting to experience, you've got like 2 or 3 actual examples, like one from 2014 in Fractals, where a guy says I was mean because he didn't stand behind a golem. And to that guy, I'm sorry that you still cling to that memory. I don't even remember that. I'm sure that I was horrible to you back in 2014 for one day. I'm not particularly ashamed of having an incident years ago. I think it's pretty human. Everyone interacting with people at some point will have a bit of friction. And to the other guy who caught me on a bad day in Eternal Coliseum in 2018, I'm equally sorry. But I am pretty irritated at people jumping down my throat and telling me that I'm now suddenly this big toxic personality when it's not true. My most unlikable qualities are probably condescension and arrogance. Fine. So this year I quit PvP anyway. At the time of my leaving, movement hacking, the act of giving your character super speed and flying around, was everywhere, and ArenaNet was very slow to react to any offenders, who would just make new accounts anyway. You get banned, you make a new account. This was, and in PvP, because there's no progression before you can actually participate in the fun stuff, aside from if you want to play rated, you've got to get a few ranks. It's very easy to do that. Before I left, the hacking was really undermining my belief that ArenaNet had the manpower to properly support a competitive scene, which people would invest in and care about. And any pipe dreams that I had, like bringing my Game of the Day PvP series to my main audience on my main channel, were sizzling out. It just wasn't a viable thing to look into for real work. The player base was filled with aggressive, judgmental little cliques, and aside from a couple of time-gated llama unlocks, I'd already earned all the rewards that they had in the whole game for PvP, except if I learned tournament play. So I tried that. I tried a little with Spuds over November and December last year. We couldn't make enough progress because we weren't good enough. I decided that the amount of time I was investing was hitting my productivity way too much, and for all these reasons I quit. I haven't played PvP all year. These past 2 weeks, and we really are talking about a very small timescale here, I returned very briefly. My original objective was just to pick up this season's Byzantium chest, and the idea here, one idea, was to familiarize myself with the new meta. See, there have been a lot of balance updates this year, like the removal of expertise amulets and the decoupling of flat damage with CC skills that I didn't have a great sense for how they affected the game. No one said this to me directly, but I feel like it's affecting the quality of the balance discussions I have on my channel, to be so out of the loop. And I've been having another problem since summer too. I've had a lack of desire to theorycraft Canthan Elite specs with boots for our End of Dragons series that I know a lot of people want more of. Boots and I have had multiple times where we've said, should we record? And it's not been there. And I figured playing a bit of the game more would rekindle that, especially in PvP. Not only this, but PvP tournaments are under the Swiss style now, and I haven't played and experienced that. There are mini seasons which have happened. There are new titles. The new balance initiative in general is underway. Lots to be excited about. And what can I say? I had hopes that maybe things were looking better, and especially with an expansion on the horizon, maybe that will be a big inflection point for this format, right? So, those hopes were pretty much immediately squashed. The community seems about the same size as it was before, if not having shrunk, and maybe the lower skill I can gain rating quicker. Casual or new players still make all the exact same mistakes as they ever did. It doesn't feel like the bar's higher. They still cry about standing on nodes and all these irritating things that have persisted for years, having no awareness for anything beyond their own skill bar. The meta interactions seem a lot more stale to me now, and the scene is just as toxic as ever. Players routinely saying disgusting stuff to each other, language that I never use, like calling people retards, or saying people should kill themselves. I've seen that constantly, maybe more than I have in the past. I've mentioned this before, but what you might not know about me is that I'm a dirty little snitch in-game. And I always have been a dirty little snitch, a quiet one. Generally speaking, if I ever see people saying stuff like that, I'll always use the report function. I'll quietly report for verbal abuse and then move on. If ArenaNet ever actually stopped to look at the logs of reports I've submitted over the years, they would find hundreds, maybe even over 1,000 different reports from years and years of play on people using really hideous, offensive language. But, of course, they don't. I don't think that any report I've ever submitted has ever met anything. As much as I may despise these words, and you too, dear listener, probably do, I don't really think it gets you anywhere. The in-game reporting system, if you don't know, is generally known as a joke, and it doesn't do anything. The assumption of mine for years, and I think it's shared by a few others, is that it's a placebo feature. Like, if someone AFKs in a game, you can click the idle report and make yourself feel a little bit better about the loss, even though no one is ever going to go and do anything. The one thing I have heard in the past, and I've never really known if it's true, but is that there are certain trigger words that if the system automatically detects them in chat, then ArenaNet really will look. Like, kill yourself is one such example. So whenever I see that language, that's why I'm a little rat, because I feel like it might actually do something. You said kill yourself in a game or any variant of that? That's when I throw the report in, because apparently there's this trigger word system. So, PvP still sucked. People still jumped on bodies, AFK'd at more rating brackets than I remember. It always used to happen in Gold, but I was experiencing it a lot even in Plat 2 now. And people even personally attacked me sometimes. Same old boring comments that I used to get, like, go back to PvE WP, which obviously they don't respond to, and it doesn't really even affect me. Following this, I almost quit PvP right there. I got my chest, and I don't have any love or connection for the mode any longer. I've been away for a year. But by chance, I rediscovered an update from March that I'd skipped. They've added a new legendary amulet, which, thanks to all my previous excessive playing, I could basically get for very little work. But I did need to get about 100 ranked wins and 20 tournament wins. So I thought that's not too bad, I will go for it. The tournament games, which force you to play in parties with other players, is where this event took place. So to do this, having no community or friends or guildies still playing PvP, I would join LFG. Now, with tournaments, there's a lot of waiting around for enrollment. And then, in between rounds, there's even more waiting around. You'll spend the majority of your time just standing about bored in Heart of the Mists, waiting. Maybe typing to these party members. Something that Swiss was supposed to fix, by the way, but it doesn't really feel like it's happened to me. So whoever you party with is fairly important for whether you're going to gel with them and when you just want to get your wins and get back out again. So me using LFG for these tourney wins was a complete mixed bag. Sometimes I'd get decent players and I'd have fair games. But then in another team which was advertised as Plat 2, the players ended up clearly far worse than that. And I felt a little cheated after being lied to. And then a bit later somebody actually whispered me and warned me. I didn't say anything to the players, obviously, it just sucked a bit. One game I was given a free win because the opponents just wanted Red to resign. Great, they're taking it seriously. The hackers were in tournaments too. Not only had I seen some firsthand, but I was even vaguely aware of a Reddit thread in which a hacker was on blatant display in a tournament being casted. So evidently there was no easy way of getting these hackers banned, they're all around, and I've explained how useless the in-game reporting feature is. On top of that, actually, for the matter of hacking, you might not know this, but there is no appropriate category for even reporting hacking. You know, if someone's edited their game files and their client and they're legitimately breaking the game, you don't even get the option to report that. You can select botting, which isn't really appropriate. You can select verbal abuse, idle play, all that kind of stuff, but not what you really want. So on my return to the scene these past 2 weeks, I've adopted a scorched earth approach, where if there's someone I want to report but the category's not there, I just hit every category. I do every single one over and over and over again, hoping that a quantity of reports might send up a red flag. It never did. And besides, you'd assume if the studio actually had an active interest in this topic, a ban wave would have happened after something as high profile as that stream I alluded to. Or at any point in the past 2 years, the fundamentals of how these tools worked would be looked at. In the past, I might have messaged Chris Cleary, a security employee at ArenaNet who I had met while playing a lot of Triple Trouble Worm in 2013, and who I could direct message on Twitter. But, as most people now know, Chris Cleary has been long gone from the studio, and there is no public developer I'm aware of to replace him in the matters of security. Like everyone else in the community, I felt like I had no power to do anything about these hackers. The ArenaNet didn't care that much about them, and certainly it looked like no one in PvP really cared anymore either. It was all just old news that they were there and a big joke. Back to LFG. I had a player AFK in one tournament for the first round, and they never explained why, then they disappeared, so we got kicked. I had another group that I was ready and enrolled with for a quarter of an hour waiting around, when suddenly I was kicked from the party with no explanation. Presumably they just wanted to replace me with a friend to take the slot instead, but that sucked and it meant I missed the whole tournament. And then third, I found a tournament team, enrolled, but then one of our teammates just never accepted the first queue pop when the time came to actually play. And by doing that, he was able to instantly disqualify all 5 of us and remove us from the running, no questions asked. We were actually a pretty good team. When this happened, the remaining party members I was with, who also got screwed over, explained that the offending guy, who I honestly don't know anything about and may be innocent, was a known troll on their block list, and that they had done it on their alt account to deliberately kick us out and ensure his own group has a higher success rate, or just to piss people off. Now, I have no idea if that's true at all, but I figured, in light of all this other stuff going on, that it made total sense people would be doing that in PvP these days. Fast forward to one more tournament team the next day, and this is the big one. It's quiet in the early morning, hardly anyone is online. I join a team and the players are really super friendly. They're talking in this kind of funny, clearly fake mock text speak. It's weird, but I really don't mind, I guess, because they're being friendly. And besides, this is on EU, people speak weirdly sometimes, lots of people are using second languages, which is something I infinitely admire and is something way more accomplished than I've ever done. I've never learned a second language. I don't judge people for that in general at all. But they were speaking weird and it felt kind of fake. Now, normally I don't talk, but these two guys seemed so desperate to have me to queue with, I ended up in a bit of conversation with them. Looking at their details, I realized that they are 2 warriors on fresh accounts. One of them had just 19 achievement point, which if you don't know is the default AP amount for a new account ever since the new player experience came to the game. You'd think it'd be 0, it's 19. It should have probably been a red flag that they were hackers, but instead what I became concerned with was that they would be doing what this previous guy had done, and were just trying to empty the tournament of players while multi-boxing during the early morning. So they reassured me that they would absolutely play, and I believed them. They have ridiculous hacker-looking names too, something like Cum Master or something. You can see it in the footage in the background. But again, I gloss over this detail. I'm even kind of happy to see the low AP. Whoever this is definitely an established player, not a total chancer. Other people don't jump straight into tournaments in their first ever moments in Guild Wars 2. Who knows, maybe they're from North America or they're skirting their own ban. Coincidentally, moments later, this Q-pop refusing guy from before joins the new team. And since I was talking anyway, I immediately commented that I was sorry, I'm not queuing with this guy, as I didn't trust he'd actually play. He protested, but the hacking warriors instantly took my side in the debate and they kicked him. At the time, I thought this was pretty cool. Now I realise it's just they didn't want to take any risks of not being able to play and cheat. Finally, 2 fresh other players, total randoms that I didn't know, joined. We were a team of 5 and ready to play. So the tournament starts, the gates open on the raid of Capricorn, and instantly I realise my warrior allies are hacking. They have perfectly calibrated glass DPS builds that will kill shot you from the air, cleave your team down with Axe 5 during a stealth stack at the start, and so on. They're using the tool to its fullest effect. They're demonstrating an actual understanding of the game's real mechanics and its real interactions. These guys aren't just like random nobodies who got their hands on a tool and are having a bit of fun like you might find in World vs. World. They're on fresh accounts they fully expect to get banned. They're not playing in good faith amongst the members of the community. They're not even really what I would consider to be members of the community. And they're very clearly long-term Guild Wars 2 players who are like bored or like jilted or mad at the game type and the game. And they're only there to fuck with it in the best way that they possibly can. They're not playing with real intentions, and I realise what an idiot I've been buying into their stupid weird typing and their mock friendliness. It was just to bait me into a game. Tragically, the other team features the player I requested we kick. Turns out, at least today, he really did want to join a tawny team. From his perspective, he sees that I've kicked him just to team up with some hackers, which is a really bad look. I apologise profusely to him in whispers. I worry about the fact that he might screenshot or film me, WP, playing with hackers. People in PvP generally don't recognise me or mention me anyway, as I said earlier in the video. But you never know. There are 10 players here. I check for spectators. Thankfully, there are none. I derep my guild, Spud, so that the tag isn't there and I'm less recognisable about a minute into the match. I really just want my tournament wins and to be done with all of this nonsense from the past 2 days, but I really don't want the Warriors to win and to mess up even more people's games. I definitely don't want to be seen associated with them, and mostly I just want Guild Wars 2 to be better. So I quietly stop playing. I'm hoping that they'll lose, and I'm basically trying to throw the game. It's a 4v5 in the enemy team's favour, but oh dear, guess what? They quit already, and they've started flaming and freaking out, and the Warriors on their builds are enough to carry the game all on their own, and we win for free. And I can't do anything about it. What a joke. So back in Heart the Mist now, and it was such a fast win that we're going to be waiting on a really long time for a fresh game, especially in a small tournament early in the morning. I realise, it's not a coincidence that they're queuing like this at this time of day. They're hoping to abuse this hour. So I'm sitting there realising that I don't want to sit about for 5 to 20 minutes interacting with these guys even more when they're cheating. So straight away, I leave the party. Simple, I just won't play with them anymore and I'll get away. Except, wait, what's this? I can't go back to ranked play. It says I'm still enrolled in the tournament. What's happening here is I'm actually being forced to play with these guys by the game. What a joke. They've been spamming me with new party invites as well as I realise this, so I accept and I instantly type to them how stupid it is that I'm now being forced to play with them as cheaters. Now, in retrospect, I really didn't have to rejoin the party, and I didn't have to start talking again, but that was just the nature of the environment we'd been in. We'd already been talking a lot, we'd already been typing a lot, and I was just amazed at how badly made the systems were that it essentially forced me to interact with them again. And hindsight is 20/20. Every step in the chain of this story is a fairly innocuous small one, to me. Now remember, there are 2 actually legitimate players in this party as well. They're suckers like me who got filled from LFG. As soon as I rejoined the party and talked about how annoyed I was that I can't even leave, one of the 2 legitimate players starts talking about how confused he is. Turns out, he managed to play the whole damn round, astoundingly oblivious to all the teleporting, or questioning why the hell he was winning, or winning so fast, or looking at what his team was doing. He had no idea. What a joke. It just goes to show how easily these hackers get away with this kind of stuff, and they shouldn't. It's ridiculous, it's farcical, and I was amazed. Now, let's stop and talk about my mindset at this point. I'm not mad. At every level of this story, I've seen PvP be every bit as crap as it ever was, and then some, so I'm disappointed in the format, but thankfully I've been away for a year. I have no grand plans here. I don't want to become addicted to it anyway, like in 2019. I'm beyond disappointed in the mode, and on some level I'm sad, but I'm mentally checked out of it at this point. And here comes this string of ridiculous stuff dating back to the tournaments from the day before that has me exasperated. Here are these weird guys typing in an obviously fake, insincere way about how important the 50 gold at the end of the tournament is, and it's so important for me to keep playing with them. It's funny in a sad way. Everything about my demeanor is casual. I'm casually using the word fuck, like I can't even get out of this fucking tourney. At the end of the day, it's not like these players need to hear my carefully calibrated etiquette. And it's in this mindset, a casual mindset, I call them cunts. Not a word I usually use, but hey. Note that I'm not streaming, I'm not filming PvP videos, I have no PvP projects in mind for my work right now. I am not playing on my main recognizable character that people know as Wooden Potatoes, not really. I'm not announcing myself as Wooden Potatoes. I'm not using public channels like map chat or local chat where lots of people would see me. You, dear viewer, are interpreting this whole story as a Wooden Potato story, and you may have seen it as a Wooden Potato story on Reddit, but at the time, it wasn't really that at all. It was a quite random hour with me playing the game as a fan, as I often do, among my tens of thousands of other hours. It was a private party channel in a fringe part of the game at a fringe hour with 2 hackers and 2 actual players. None of these people had shown any indication they knew anything about my work, and I hadn't talked at all about my work. You guys may hear my voice and associate it with my work, and you can't kind of pull those apart. Remember, this is just text chat, and it's just a almost random character name, and you'd really have to know what my account name is and so on. Now, I obviously do appreciate that with what I do for a living, there is the reality that I should always be thinking about the fact that I'm on display, and I'd like to think that for the remaining thousands and thousands of hours that I've put into this game and into this work, I have walked that line very well and have been very fine with that. The casual swearing and cunt aren't representing my work in any way. I haven't adopted a policy of saying, "Hi and welcome to another video, you fucking cunts." It's offensive language directed at people I don't respect, but it was separate from my work if I had even been considering my work at the time, which I don't 24 hours a day. You might be thinking about it constantly while interacting with my content, but me as a person, I'm not constantly thinking about what I do for a living. And the truth is, a lot of the time, I'm just playing Guild Wars 2 as a fan. That's always been my thing. That's why my account name isn't Wooden Potatoes. That's why I don't use characters called Wooden Potatoes. I mean, I do now own that character because someone was impersonating me a few years ago, but the point stands. Back to the party chat. It takes a long time for a new pop, and I'm now in chat explaining to the innocent player what's going on, and the other innocent player, who is clued in at least, agrees with me that he too will not accept the next tournament match. He'll be virtuous, he's a great guy. So we're going to deliberately do what that guy we kicked was doing. Now, really, you can view this, and in truth it is, holding a tournament team hostage, really, which I guess is an offense under normal circumstances, but I would strongly argue not in this one. So we just have to wait it out until the pop now, but at this point there's been a shift. These guys realize that they're not going to get another game. They're not going to be able to keep going further with this tournament, and they need to convince us to actually play. And smiling, I'm amazed to see them continue putting on this front, thinking they have even the remotest of chances. They're obviously irritated they'll have to wait another 3 hours to try again, but it's lunacy to think they could ever convince me to cheat through a tournament with them, even though I'm desperate for the wins myself and have had my own frustrations. It's not going to happen. It's insulting to think they could even try. So just to make it clear just how little I respect them and that they don't have a chance, I'm swearing more at them and making it clear just how little I give a shit about what they have to say. So they try a new tack, that I'm making them upset, and they threaten to report me for match manipulation. What a joke. Hilariously, I realised this might actually be a good thing. They report me, someone will look into this, and they're out. No sane GM on the support team would ever punish me for this. It has to be a bluff. Again, I'm not thinking about work or anything like that in this moment. It's a mistake, but an honest one. So I dare them to do it, and I call them pussies. I realise I can report too. I haven't reported them yet because it's obviously pointless. But in my now standard Scorched Earth style, I'm going through every checkbox. And as I'm going through the checkboxes, thinking how futile this is for 2 players, I think, well, hold on here. Here's a new idea for this bizarre situation. The trigger words. They want to report me, but I know that's not going to do anything. Maybe the trigger words will ensure that it actually will do something. I don't know for sure. A good part of me believes that the trigger words are a placebo too, or that ArenaNet just stopped caring this past year with how often I see people saying them. So in a snap decision, alright, and it's stupid, with all of a second's deliberation, I tell them I can get a GM in chat with the trigger words, and we'll see what they think. Only 2 words spring to mind, and it's not kill yourself, though someone on Discord later reminded me of this one. I typed fag, and I typed retard, on their own, on separate lines. Now, let's use our brains for a second. Those words are not being used as insults. They're not being used in a fit of rage. I didn't call anyone a fag. I didn't call anyone a retard. I don't know these hackers' sexuality. I don't know their mental or physical conditions. These words are being used in the same way as I type them into this video script and I speak them now. Fag. Retard. It's referential. It was language being used as a tool. If you actually think this means I'm a homophobe, if you actually think I use that word regularly, if you actually think I spit at the mouth calling people retards, and it's been like this great kept secret for 10 years, you are unfathomably dim. You know, on Reddit, I get a lot of hate for being condescending when the community jumps to an outrage. And I really don't want to condescend anyone here, because you didn't have the full picture. You were manipulated by these hackers. I do think people on the internet should talk less and think more in general, and that not a single person can have had any meaningful impact until my side's expressed here, but that's the human condition, I guess. I don't want to condescend people up to this point. But if now, after hearing all of this, you seriously think that I did something desperately terrible, then yes, I do condescend you. You are a hysterical, out-of-touch fool. I do not apologise, and I do not admit guilt. But make no mistake, I do know that I was a complete idiot. I may have been surrounded with unprofessional conduct and grotesque behaviour for days, but I shouldn't have slipped into it myself. Everything may have felt lawless and pointless and abandoned, but it wasn't. I do think there is something to be said for the innocent onlookers. Perhaps they might flinch at the use of the word fag in front of them. But that was also true when I said pussy. It was also true when I typed cunt. And it was also true when I said fuck. For some reason, nobody wants to talk about these situations. I feel equally bad about all of those, which is to say, I don't buy it as a particularly strong argument. We can talk about owning words and normalizing words and the broad societal impact of language if you want to, and I'll tell you that you're barking up the wrong tree, because even if you can't critically think about the nuance to which I express these words in this story, you have to accept the fact that I don't use this language regularly, and if I do, where's the evidence? So, there's a little more to this story to round it out. Towards the end of the conversation, one of the other players on Looking mentioned WP, casually and in passing. I think it was only now, after everything was said and done, that it ever became apparent to me, and probably the hackers too, that I was a person with a reputation and they knew who I was. And it was probably fun for them to realise that they now had another way of fucking with Guild Wars 2. Like the hacking itself was just a fun way to fuck with Guild Wars 2. And now they could cause some drama and stir some shit. What they did was they cropped and edited the conversations so that they look like innocent, regular players who were just upset, and, you know, maybe I've played a normal game with them, and that I'm like this raging lunatic who called them fags because I'm mad we lost or something. They made a Reddit thread about how WP was a raging match manipulator. It was a bit scary that this was now about my work, but rational minds would win out, I figured. I really didn't take it as a credible or serious threat. Honestly, I continue to find it pretty funny. I mean, really, who would actually believe any of that's true about my character? Well, I'm an idiot, because people did. They took the bait. The Reddit thread ended up being pulled, but all these little Discord cliques and communities that I've never joined, I've always been very independently minded within Guild Wars 2, they had this screenshot and they whispered away to each other. And then the partner program got involved. So there is another chapter to this story I can't talk about for now involving the program and their actions. You will get that in time. But to return to my comment at the top of the thread, I'm not banned from the partner program. There has been action taken against me, but again, we will talk about this at a later date. There's a code of conduct and there's some decisions I want to make before I return to you on this. I do want to apologize to the other 2 players that were there when this happened, by the way. Especially the oblivious player who I kind of laughed openly around when I realized just how little he understood the game and what was going on. That's my biggest regret on this. I firmly believe that there are no victims in this story, except maybe him. As to that other person who refused the pot with me, well, we went on to play 4 ranked queues, and we had fun. I think we won 2, lost 2, went our separate ways. So hey. And on a final note of shame from me, no one wants to talk about it much, but the actual thing I really regret is saying cunt and pussy, because those were actual directed insults. Retard and fag were not directed insults, but cunt and pussy were. Even though they were hackers on the receiving end, I don't know why I'm in a place in my life where I ended up relaxedly using that kind of language. I should be an adult, even to those I have no respect for. Doubly so when the leisure I'm enjoying is somewhat connected to my work, and it's this weird public platform where I have to beg and grovel for the approval of strangers 24/7. So, I'll be working on that. I have a backlog of half-finished videos and topics for the floor, which will continue as normal. This really isn't a story. I won't consider it to be one. But, you know, something gets big enough, eventually you've got to talk about it, right? And again, returning to what I said at the start of the video, my main concern is casual acquaintances who might have got the complete wrong idea about me. I hope that, you know, you now just look at me as a fool. I'm happy to be looked at as a fool. We've all had moments where we've been a fool, and little more. So thanks for watching, guys. I don't know what all the children are talking about with cancelling, but I'll see you on the next one.